Right, let's get cracking with the show. Enzo Maresca was announced yesterday as the Premier League manager of the month of September, which got us thinking of the calibre of managers in the Premier League, because obviously we're blessed with some of the best managers. So the Saturday Socialist whiteboard is out in all its glory. We've got the numbers 1 to 10 on that, and we're going to be ranking the best managers in the Premier League. Now, this is Fuad's selection, so Fuad is taking the lead with this. Neve, we want you to critique Fuad's picks and also the order that he's got them in. Fuad, tell us how you've done this, because you spent a lot of time on this, didn't you?
So I've kind of taken into what they've done in their career in total as well, but it's kind of, the way I've looked at it is, if I had a vacant job right now, how would I rank the managers and kind of rate their stocks, essentially?
I think that's a good way of doing it, actually. I think that's a really good way of doing it. So who have you got in the 10th position for 10th best manager?
10th place, I've got a manager who I think I was pretty wrong about from the start of the season compared to now, and that is Enzo Maresca. And honestly, I've been very impressed with how he's started to life at Chelsea. I think Chelsea have been a club that's been kind of a lot of upheaval over the past 18 months, and Pochettino last season did get some structure in there, but I feel like the way he's kind of come in, brought discipline in, the way he's talking in press conferences, I think if you're a Chelsea fan, it really fills you with confidence. But then on top of that, how dangerous they look in attack as well. I think very, very impressed, honestly. And then can't forget the job he did with Leicester, of course, last season, getting them promoted as well. So
yeah, 6 points better off of the 7 Premier League games compared to last season, Chelsea. Your thoughts on Maresca, Neve, and the position of 10th that Fuad's got him?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. He's one that we didn't really know what to expect with him coming into the season. My only concern with him was the way he was with Leicester, quite stubborn to his own style. Would he bring that to Chelsea? But he hasn't. They play with a lot of freedom, and I think when you've got such talented players, you ought to. And they look like they just enjoy football, the Chelsea players, which is key.
That's a good shout. Let's get him up. OK,
number 9. So who have you got?
Number 9.
Just above Maresca in 9th
Just above Maresca, I've gone Andoni Iraola.
I love this guy.
And I think, honestly, another one, surprised last season when, obviously, he took over the Bournemouth job. A lot of people were thinking Bournemouth were maybe pretty harsh to sack Gary O'Neill, but what he did last year, I felt like, really brought the team together, had them performing above expectations. And this season, he's lost his best player in Dominic Solanke, who scored 19 league goals for him. But I think the way he's just improved the Bournemouth side, that obviously under Eddie Howe was a really consistent side, but I just feel like he's just taken him up a level. And I'm actually thinking he could actually get a bigger job after he leaves Bournemouth as well. Someone who I rate very highly.
Totally agree. I was lucky enough to meet him midweek, and such a big personality, such a good talker, great character, and obviously tactically unbelievable. What he did with that Rayo Vallecano side. I think even this season they've been a little bit unlucky in terms of XG, haven't they? Evan Nilsson's missed some big chances.
Yeah. And they're athletes, aren't they? Those Bournemouth players, like they're real athletes. He's created a great monsters in that team.
It's the system he plays with as well.
Yeah,
gets the best out of him.
Absolutely.
OK, so he's in at 9.
OK, 8.
8th place, this one I'm very happy with, actually. Marco Silva, one of the most underrated managers, I think.
Yeah, they've gone a bit under the radar, Fulham, haven't they? 8th in the league, currently 3 points better off than after 7 Premier League games last season. He's an interesting one, Marco Silva. You used the term underrated there.
Yeah, I think because initially when he came into the Premier League, very exciting, had his spell with Hull, but then jumped ships with Everton, which I think took his stocks down a little bit. But since taking the Fulham job, it's almost like he's turned a band of misfits, if you like, the likes of Leno, Iwobi, taking Smith Rowe and Reece Nelson this summer, and he's really turned them into a team that's really together and plays really well. Last season got to the Carabao semi-final, year before that finished 9th place, and I think tactically what he's been able to do as well, brilliant with that Fulham side.
In terms of what he's done as well, because he got promotion and then finished 10th and 13th in the Premier League in the 2 seasons after, and also bearing in mind the players that he has lost in that period, the likes of Paulinho, Mitrovic, and players like that. What's your thoughts on Silva? Would he be higher or lower, or is 8 about right for you, Neve?
I mean, we'll see when we see the other managers, but yeah, Paulinho, the most recent one, I think sort of embodies what he's all about, because what he's done really, I'd say, Fulham this season, they sort of press collectively higher up the pitch to compensate for that lack of aggression they had in midfield. So he's on it, isn't he, with dealing with player losses.
I think people almost forget as well, like when he broke through as a manager in Portugal, like the job he was doing with, I think it was Esther at the time, wasn't it? He was so highly rated.
Highly rated, you're right.
He was almost like a Nagelsmann type figure when he first broke through in Portugal, and now obviously people have almost forgotten about how high his ceiling is as a manager. He's done such a good job. In at 7.
7. Going along with another underrated one,
I'd agree
Thomas Frank. Honestly, I think tactically superb. I think every Big Six side can say they've had a bad day at Brentford.
Yeah, he's a Big Six killer, isn't he?
Going there, and that speaks a lot about him. I think losing Ivan Toney, the player development that he's shown with Mbeumo, Wissa, Rico Henry. There's so many players there. The recruitment year after year, and he's been at Brentford, I think, since 2018 now, and they've become one of the most consistent Premier League sides. You almost know they're guaranteed safety every year, but massive credit, I think, goes to Thomas Frank for how he's kind of run that club from top.
I'd agree with that, actually. I said, I think, on last week's show that I think he's one of the most underrated managers in the Premier League, because I think there's a lot of factors you have to bear in mind with Brentford. Obviously, the spend that they can have relative to other clubs around them. Also, the amount of injuries that they had went so under the radar last year because bigger, so to speak, clubs had a lot of injuries. But Brentford had so many players out, and the adaptation, how he's had to deal with key players. And I've been lucky enough to work with him on many times. And his man management, I've seen him on in training scenarios with players, and like what he does for that football club with the culture there, I just think is excellent. What are your thoughts on Thomas Frank, Niamh?
Yeah, absolutely. He articulates his philosophy so well as well, which is what makes me believe he could take that step up when it comes to it. He's got no ego as well, that we do see a little bit of in management, and that's why he's come into the Premier League. He's made a style that suits the Premier League, not one that maybe suits him and shows him off as a manager. And season by season, he's sort of drip-fed little new elements to maintain that consistency. And they've got a bit more control this season.
And even if he doesn't get a Big Six move, I think a top European club should definitely take a look at him, in my opinion.
He's also the only manager on this list, Joe, that's taken part in our Saturday Social Lies feature, which I absolutely love to this day. Check it out on Sky Sports Premier League YouTube channel while you're at it. Number 6,
Number 6, I've gone Eddie Howe.
Oh, can I just ask, who do you support?
Tottenham Hotspur.
OK, I'm going to bear that in mind, because I'm not seeing a name, and we're getting higher and higher.
And am I right in thinking, Fuad, that you changed... there was a late change.
Yeah, there was a late change around where...
Got it.
Should we do the next two together?
Yeah, let's do the next two together.
Let's do the next two together, shall we?
Because originally
Eddie
they were
Howe
the other way round.
6,
There he
and I got
is.
Ange Postecoglou 5th.
But you did have them the other way around.
And I did have them the other way round, and then I just thought, you know what? My biasness kicked in, and I want to put my gaffer up into the top 5. And listen, I think Eddie Howe, you can't forget what he did at Bournemouth, getting him up there into the Premier League, turning him into a very fluid and good club. But then also what he's done at Newcastle, I feel like he took them to new heights. And he's almost been a little bit unlucky, I feel like, over the past 18 months, where a lot of injuries, suspensions like Tonali. This summer, I don't think they maybe had the best window, but he's still found ways to almost get a tune out of Newcastle. And, of course, you can't forget taking them to the Carabao Cup final as well. But then Ange Postecoglou, I think, of course, excellent job at Celtic. But since coming into Spurs, listen, I think it's been a big cultural change. I think people forget where Spurs were before he came in, under Jose, under Conte, and how transfers were even looking. And now the optimism around the club, I feel like that's a lot down to him. And similarly, like I was saying with Maresca, how a manager talks, how he carries himself brings a lot. And I feel like Ange has done that. And, of course, listen, there's still a few kinks to iron out, but I genuinely think he's going to be the guy to bring Spurs silverware eventually.
OK, Niamh, where do you stand on the two?
Ange I would put lower. To be quite honest with you, I'd put Thomas Frank above Ange.
Oh, really? Why?
Yeah, I really would.
Why?
I really would. Because, and also I definitely would put Eddie Howe above Ange, because you talk about changing the culture at Tottenham. Eddie Howe did the exact same thing at Newcastle. It was really bad before he came into it. It was Newcastle fans, they were not happy, and rightly so. It was before they made signings that he took them from relegation zone all the way up to top 4, and then the signings that he's made, like you say, he's not had too many of them, but they show. I love the signings he's made, whereas Ange, there's just too many weaknesses in the way he plays, the signings he's made and the way he plays, where Eddie Howe, he goes above, and so does Thomas Frank.
OK.
Stick that one on there, and then I'll stick this one.
It is Fuad's list, so we're sticking with Fuad's.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now 4th place, a man also very impressive very early on, Arne Slot.
Top of the Premier League, Liverpool.
I think this almost Arne Slot revolution, I don't know if anybody expected it, but dare I say they look even a little bit better under him than they did under Klopp last year. And the tune he's been able to get out of Ryan Gravenberch, Luis Diaz, the improvements we're seeing in him. I didn't know Virgil van Dijk could get any better, but he's looking even better this year. It's honestly the football they're playing, but also won the title at Feyenoord, which I don't think is an easy feat in the Eredivisie. With PSV and Ajax have been so dominant historically in that league, he's kind of come in as the underdog and won that title very convincingly, but now showing he can do it in the Premier League as well, which is a very difficult
Great
task.
talker as well. I think it's such a big asset to have when you first arrive in the league, to be able to communicate really well with the media. And Arne Slot, when he gives his interviews, when he's touch pitch side, like, I just think he's such a good talker, and that really helps him.
Massive shoes to step into as well. When you think, like, a lot of people had their say on Liverpool over the summer with that, you know, didn't invest loads in the playing squad, new manager, end of Klopp era. A lot of people thought Liverpool would be a lot further down than they are now. I mean, he deserves huge credit for the way, not just the results, Neve, because he did allude to the fact that their fixture schedule has been quite kind comparative to other clubs, but even to notice a slight difference in the way they're playing so quickly, I think is a massive positive for Arne as well.
Even the fact that you could describe his identity and what he's all about, you could pinpoint exactly how he wants to play, because he's implemented it so quickly, which we've seen with other managers is not easy to do.
All right, let's get him on.
Should we do 3 and 2 together? Because I think we know who's going to be number 1.
Yeah.
There's a bit of debate here. So
I agree.
3 and 2.
Third place,
who you've got.
I have Mikel Arteta.
Wow.
Second place, I have Unai Emery. And I think this has been a debate that's actually been happening over the past couple of months. But I think Mikel Arteta, like we've talked about changing the cultures at the club, I think he is an epitome of being a success at that, because what he's done with Arsenal to turn them into the contending machine that they are now, I just feel like the only thing left for him is to cross that finishing line now, essentially. But he has done an incredible job in rebuilding that team. A young core as well that's got a future to be together for the next 3 or 4 years, but credit to him where it's due. Unai Emery, however, the job he has done at Aston Villa, wow. Getting him back in the Champions League for the first time since the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, and the transfers we've seen come in, tactically how they've played as well, I think defensively astute, scoring goals at will as well. And then you can't forget the job he's done previously as well at other clubs, where he's won the Europa League and with Sevilla.
He's won 9 major trophies in his managerial
it's incredible.
career.
Incredible manager. And I think last time he was in the Premier League with Arsenal, definitely had a hit on his stocks. But I feel like with his spell at Villa now, he's really seen as one of the top managers in Europe, in my opinion.
Where do you stand on this debate, Neve?
I think right now Emery is closer to Pep than he is to Arteta. Emery,
really?
I think it's insulting to compare the two at this moment in time.
What more has Arteta got to do, though? Because, like, I mean...
he's got to win more trophies.
But he's only been in management for such a short period of time, and he is so young that it feels like his growth has been
point of it, right?
so enormous.
So that with time, he will develop that, but that's the whole point of it. Like, you've got to wait for that time. Because of what Emery's already done, because he's been in the game for so much longer, that's the whole point of it. He's an esteemed, accomplished manager who shouldn't be compared with a manager who's in his first
So you don't think
years.
there's even a comparison? You think Emery's clear, do you?
Yeah, he has, because, like we say, the European Cups with Sevilla, Villarreal, what he did at PSG as well, their win percentage, they won everything but the 2 Champions Leagues in the 2 seasons. And now what he's doing with Villa. What he's doing with Villa as well is he's got control over pretty much everything. They've put the club literally trust him so much because of how experienced, how much wisdom he's got, because that's the stage he's at, and Arteta's not there yet.
All right,
Okay, so get up 2 top managers. I think we all know who's coming at 1.
Oh,
no point talking about Pep.
Is the one
Number 1
only Russell Martin. No. Pep Guardiola, without a shadow of a doubt, the best manager in the Premier League. I mean, sets the standard in football, sets the standard in the Premier League.
A couple of missions. Fabian Hurts a lot. If you're looking at this season, he's only got this season, the youngest manager, of course. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't even mentioned him.
He's almost like the wonder kid version of managers, isn't he?
Yeah, 6th in the league.
Definitely an up-and-coming one to keep an eye on. I think Brighton play some exciting football, but I think don't want to, jump the gun.
OK.
Fair enough. Shout out Nuno as well. I think he's done an amazing job at Forest. Honestly, I think he would be a contender.
Neve, just lastly, your thoughts on that? Any omissions or changes that you'd make to that?
The only one I would do is I would take Iraola out and put Nuno in. That's the only change I would do.
OK.
Interesting to see, talking about ceilings, Kieran McKenna, like where he'll be, and obviously so highly rated as a young manager. But there is confirmation, anyway, of Fuad's list. Let us know what you think of that at home. Pep Guardiola takes it in at number 1. Unsurprisingly, yeah.